They burned their own children alive. The Carthaginians made offerings that would horrify the modern world. And when Rome finally came, they didn't just conquer. They erased everything. 2,800 years ago, Phoenician sailors from the city of Tyre founded a colony on the North African coast. They called it Carthage, the new city. We know it as Carthage. Within 3 centuries, this small trading post had become the wealthiest empire in the western Mediterranean. Their ships dominated every port from Spain to Sicily. Their merchants controlled the flow of silver, tin, and purple dye. But their greatest strength became their fatal weakness. The Carthaginians believed their prosperity came from the gods. And those gods demanded a terrible price. Deep within their cities lay sacred precincts called Tophets. What happened there would only be confirmed by archaeologists 2,000 years later. In 1921, archaeologists began excavating a site near the ancient Carthage harbor. What they found disturbed them. Thousands of urns, each containing tiny bones. The remains of children, some as young as newborns. For decades, scholars debated what this meant. Perhaps these were simply cemeteries for children who died naturally. And then the empire made a mistake it couldn't undo. They kept records. Carved stone markers called stelae stood above each urn. The inscriptions were unmistakable. These children were offered to the gods Baal Hammon and Tanit. They were sacrificed. Not all at once, but systematically, over centuries. Elite families gave their firstborn sons when times grew desperate. When wars threatened. When the gods needed appeasing. What happened next changed history, forever. In 264 BCE, Rome and Carthage went to war. The First Punic War lasted 23 years. Both empires threw everything they had at each other. Massive naval battles. Bloody sieges. Tens of thousands dead. When Carthage finally lost, they paid massive tribute to Rome. But defeat only deepened their faith. The Tophet inscriptions from this period show an increase in sacrifices. The gods had been displeased. More offerings were needed. And then came the man who would bring Rome to its knees. His father, Hamilcar Barca, had fought Rome in the First War. Before leading his army to Spain, Hamilcar brought his 9-year-old son to the temple. There, the boy swore an oath. He would never be a friend to Rome. That boy's name was Hannibal. But the real tragedy was just beginning. In 218 BCE, Hannibal did the impossible. He marched an army of 50,000 men, and 37 war elephants across the Alps in winter. Romans thought the mountains would protect them. They were wrong. Hannibal descended into Italy like a storm. At the Battle of Cannae, he encircled and annihilated 8 Roman legions. 70,000 Romans died in a single day. It remains one of the worst military defeats in history. For 16 years, Hannibal terrorized Italy. Rome came closer to destruction than at any other time in its history. But think about that for a second. Back in Carthage, as Hannibal won victory after victory, the sacrifices continued. The Tophet fires still burned. What kind of civilization produces both military genius and ritual child sacrifice? The fall was coming. Nobody saw it. After Hannibal was finally defeated and forced to flee Carthage, Rome imposed crushing terms. But Carthage did something remarkable. They rebuilt. Within 50 years, they had paid off their war debt. Their merchants again dominated trade. Their city again grew wealthy. In this terrified Rome, a Roman senator named Cato the Elder ended every single speech, regardless of topic, with the same words: Carthago dilenda est. Carthage must be destroyed. But, everything I just told you? That's just the setup. Because what Rome did next wasn't just conquest. It was annihilation. The Third Punic War began in 149 BCE. Rome demanded the impossible. Abandon your coastal city. Move 10 miles inland. For a trading empire, this was death. And this is where everything fell apart. Carthage refused Rome's demands. They knew what surrender meant. So they fought. Every citizen became a soldier. Women cut their hair to make bowstrings. Temples were melted down for weapons. For 3 years, the Carthaginians held their walls against the greatest military power on earth. The Romans couldn't believe it. How could a merchant city resist so fiercely? But desperation drove them. The Tophet fires burned hotter than ever during the siege. Ancient sources claim hundreds of children were sacrificed as the walls began to crack. If the gods could save them, surely now was the time. In 146 BCE, the walls finally fell. The Roman general Scipio Aemilianus entered the city. What followed would last 17 days. But wait. The final blow came from within. The Carthaginians retreated to the temple of Eshmun on the highest hill. 50,000 people crammed inside. Street by street, Romans slaughtered everyone they found. Ancient historians describe soldiers fighting their way up staircases slick with blood. The harbor that had launched 1,000 ships burned for days. And then Scipio gave the order. Destroy everything. Every building demolished. Every stone scattered. Roman priests performed rituals to curse the ground itself.